So what happens when you're giving someone a tarot reading and they get angry at you? I've been a professional tarot reader for over a decade, and while anger is an emotion that's fairly uncommon, it's still something that you should expect and anticipate as a tarot reader. The first time I ever had someone get legitimately angry at me for a tarot reading, I was reading for a friend, which, ironically, I thought reading for a friend, it would be less stressful, but it was actually more stressful. And she asked me a question about whether or not she and her boyfriend would get married, right? And I pulled some cards and I got the Chariot, the Emperor, and the Three of Swords. Now, as some of you may know, Three of Swords is the breakup card. It is definitely not a good card if you're bullying about your relationship. So I told her quite bluntly my interpretation, which was, I think he's going to travel. He's going to travel on his pursuit of becoming a man, and he's going to break up with you when he leaves. He's going to leave you and break up. And her response, I wasn't anticipating her response to be so rude and full of vitriol and anger. First, she started by insulting tarot, right? She said, these are just stupid cards. They don't mean anything. This is just some, childish game. It's all hypothetical. And then she started to insult me, saying things like, I can't believe that you're dumb enough to believe this stuff. Yeah, and then of course she went on to reiterate how fantastic their relationship was and how he's amazing and the love of her life. And at the time, I wasn't expecting that kind of reaction, especially from a friend. And I just apologized to her and I said, oh, I'm sorry you didn't like the reading. And I really just tried to end the conversation as fast as possible. She and I didn't talk for a while after that. When I ran into her again, she told me that her boyfriend had actually secretly applied for the military. And when he got his orders to go to boot camp in another state or in another location, he dumped her. And so the tarot reading actually was very accurate. It was so accurate. I was actually blown away how accurate it was. She, however, was still very angry. She was angry at me, angry at the boyfriend. She did, however, tell me a comment that I found really helpful, which was she said that she wouldn't have asked the question, about her and her boyfriend if she didn't feel at some deep level inside of her that something was wrong with their relationship. And I think that her subconscious had picked up on a tonal shift in the relationship. I think that her subconscious could sense that something was wrong in the relationship, and that is why she asked about it in a tarot reading. But when it comes to anger, we have to understand that when we're reading for a client and they get angry, anger is a defense mechanism when we're triggered by something that we're afraid of. So it's really important not to take it personally, even if that person is insulting you. It's important to step back and realize they're just trying to protect themselves. Whatever about the tarot reading really triggered them, it triggered them. They feel threatened. They feel confronted by an uncomfortable truth. There's something that made them feel like they need to react in anger to neutralize that threat. And so if someone does insult you or demean you or is dismissive about tarot, I think that it's important not to take it personally and to see that this is just a person who is reacting out of fear. They're having that fight or flight response and they're choosing to fight. It's a strong emotional reaction to deal with, but underneath, when we can have empathy for our clients, we realize that underneath that anger is actually someone who's feeling hurt and afraid. So now when I have clients who react that way, I have a very, very different approach to dealing with them that I think is way more beneficial. So the first thing that I will do is I will de-escalate the situation and I will calm them down. I will say things like, hey, you know, tarot is just an exploration of potential or hypothetical futures. Just because the cards indicate something negative is going to happen doesn't mean that it actually will. You know, the future is not set in stone, and this is just a potential path, not a guarantee. And I will talk about other potential future paths, like a comet could fall from the sky tomorrow. You know, the polar ice caps could melt, right? There are 1,000,001 negative things that could happen in the future, but just because they could happen doesn't mean that they will happen. And so once I usually explain that, usually the person calms down and they stop being angry. And then I encourage them to explore hypotheticals and say, okay, well, we have this tarot reading, and let's just say in a hypothetical world that this situation came true. Let's just say in a hypothetical world, your boyfriend did break up with you. How would you like that situation to unfold? Or what do you think that you need to build resilience and resourcefulness in something so traumatic or negative or upsetting to you? And I usually have it framed of like, let's not take this seriously, but let's just talk about why you're having such a reaction of anger and dismissive. Why is it so important to you to make sure that this tarot reading is false, right? Like, it means that you're afraid of this coming true. So if this hypothetically did come true, what do you think you would need to protect yourself? Or what kind of resilience would you like to have to make sure that you would maintain your emotional stability? And I, instead of making it a conversation about, well, this is what the cards say, instead I would make it an exploration intuitively and introspectively on how that person would explore that challenge in their life from a potential outlook, not necessarily saying, you know, this is a guarantee, but just from a potential outlook. Let's have a hypothetical conversation and let's explore why this is so upsetting to you. Because ultimately a tarot reading is a tool. Whether you want to use it for divination, whether you want to use it for self-exploration or healing or anything, tarot is a tool. And it's a very, very good tool in helping us connect with our subconscious, helping us explore emotions and concepts that we might be deep in denial about, that we might be afraid to even talk about. And by using tarot as a dialogue, we're able to explore maybe uncomfortable truths or uncomfortable potential future outcomes. Then the conversation shifts, and I find that instead of just reacting to the client's anger, now we're kind of exploring why they got angry about that and what they need to do to overcome that anger and to come to terms with potential negative outcomes. I'll probably talk more about this, but life is not a cupcake. Life is not easy. Life is full of suffering. It's full of disappointment. It is full of pain. There are going to be bad things that happen to you. There are going to be bad things that happen to me. We all get old, we all get sick, and one day we're all going to die, right? That's just a fact of life. And so if tarot represents life, well, you can't expect every single tarot reading to be just sunshine, rainbows, and, you know, unicorns dancing. There has to be some kind of coming to terms with the challenges and adversity of life. And so sometimes when you're giving a tarot reading and you get a negative outcome, instead of just panicking and reacting in anger or trying to convince yourself that tarot isn't real because I don't want this to be true, instead come to terms with, you know what, life does have its tragedies. Life does have moments where we don't want things to turn out this way. And by preparing ourselves, by fortifying our ability to handle adversity, we're ultimately building up a character of resilience and strength, even if it's just an intellectual exercise with a tarot reading. You would be amazed at how some people who seem so like put together and calm on the surface, how triggering some tarot readings can be. Because I think what makes tarot unique is that it gets to that subconscious core. It has a way of really triggering people in a deep emotional way, in a deep spiritual way. So it's not uncommon that people might react with an intense emotion like anger. So that is how I react to angry clients today. I think that's a lot more constructive. Obviously, of course, if someone starts, name calling or calling me stupid like my friend did, she's not my friend anymore. I don't have patience for that. I'm not gonna put up with someone like that. Like, I'm a tarot reader. Don't come to me if you don't want a tarot reading. That's just stupid. But as my point of view, I'm here to help the client. I'm here to help that person, whether that be through talk, whether that be through spiritual healing, whether that be through an introspective process. Everybody is different, and I'm here to support like my client and their story and their journey. And if you have a negative emotional reaction, that's not a crime. That's just part of being human, and it's okay to be human during a tarot reading. It's not okay to be rude and mean. But if someone reacts in anger, I don't take it personally, and I know that means that I just triggered a core fear, and they're just doing that fight or flight response to try to regain control of their emotions. So if I can help them regain control of their emotions through tarot and through healing, through exploring hypotheticals, through using tarot as a tool, then I can take a negative situation and actually make it quite positive. And yeah, it's tricky. I think that people don't talk about the customer service side of giving a tarot reading. Normally when I look up tarot reading, everyone's just like, this is how you memorize a card, and here's a great tarot spread to use. But, if you're reading for live human beings, you're gonna get unpredictable human responses. And knowing how to redirect and change that tarot reading to make it a positive experience is something that takes time and practice. But I would say, as a general advice, don't take someone's anger personally. Don't react to them and make the situation worse. Just take a couple steps back and ask them, why are you so afraid of this potentially being true? What about this tarot reading is so upsetting to you? Take out the fact of like, superstition or, woo-woo stuff. Like, remove that. Just on a hypothetical conversation, why would you have such a strong emotional reaction to something, to words? And usually that stops a lot of people in their tracks, and it makes them pause and think about why they've blown off the handle over a tarot reading, because they shouldn't. So that's how I handle angry clients. And as a general rule, I try not to read for my friends anymore. I know a lot of like beginning tarot readers, they read for their friends and family to get practice. But the problem with that is sometimes it can really damage our relationships. And the other thing that I found, this is probably a story for another day, but sometimes, tarot has no privacy settings. And so when I pull cards for someone, anything can come up. Like their deepest, darkest secrets, their deepest, darkest shames, the truth of the problem, even if they've been lying to me. And so you really need to be sensitive and delicate about giving tarot readings to people that you have relationships with, because the reading might tell you something that they didn't want you to know or you didn't want to know. So that is another thing to take into account for another day. But yeah, that's how I handle angry clients. I hope this was helpful, and take care, everybody.